Today I'm going to be talking about the 2 ways to build tolerance for uncertainty. Hey everybody, today I'm going to be continuing this series on worry management and the last few videos that have been talking about this really important concept of intolerance of uncertainty. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the 2 ways to build tolerance for uncertainty. Now, before I get into that, just a couple of disclaimers to go over. I am a registered psychologist in the province of British Columbia, Canada, and this video is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as a replacement or substitute for advice from your doctor or mental health professional. So with those 2 things out of the way, let's start talking about building tolerance for uncertainty. So if you've seen some of my previous videos, you know that we've sort of been building up to this idea and this concept of building tolerance for uncertainty, because intolerance of uncertainty is the fuel that drives this worry engine. And so I've talked about the concept of intolerance of uncertainty, how intolerance of uncertainty serves to fuel and drive the worry engine. In a previous video, I talked about the various different manifestations of intolerance of uncertainty, the various different ways that intolerance of uncertainty can play out in a person's thinking patterns, in a person's behavior. So today we're going to be putting all of this information together and talking about how you go about actually building your tolerance for uncertainty. So the key to understanding building tolerance for uncertainty is to understand that when we talk about worries, we're talking about thoughts that are predictions of something that's going to happen. So the idea is to reconceptualize your worry, or think about your worries not so much as worries or factual things that are going to happen, but essentially predictions and hypotheses of what's going to happen. So the key way we build tolerance for uncertainty is through behavioral exposure to uncertainty, essentially doing what I call tolerating uncertainty experiments. So the idea with these tolerating uncertainty experiments is to put those predictions to the test and see how accurate those predictions actually are. So for example, if I'm avoiding returning a phone call to a friend because I'm concerned they might be upset with me, I might come up with a tolerating uncertainty experiment that gets me to call my friend. So that's the behavior. That's the tolerating uncertainty experiment behavior that I'm going to do. Return the phone call to my friend. The next thing to think about then is, what is it that I'm worrying about? What is my worry telling me is going to happen when I return the phone call to a friend? So the idea is you're setting up the experiment and you're thinking about the hypothesis or the prediction ahead of time. And so what I'll often give my clients is a worksheet to help them organize these tolerating uncertainty experiments in their mind. And I'll put a link to the worksheet down below so that you can download it and see it for yourself. So the first two parts of the worksheet you do before you actually engage in the experiment. Come up with the chosen behavior, and then you think about, what is it that I'm worrying is going to happen? What does my worry predict, or what is my worry telling me is going to happen? Now, this is where worry awareness training becomes really important. We talked about worry awareness training right at the beginning of this series on worry management. You need to know what it is that you're worrying about before you can actually begin to manage the worry. So the worry becomes central in this experiment. This is what we're testing. We're testing whether or not what we worry about is actually going to happen. So now I've come up with my behavior, I've come up with my hypothesis, the worry prediction. Then I go and do the experiment. I actually pick up the phone and I call my friend. This is the data collection portion of the experiment. And I write down and I record what actually happened. I called my friend and they were really pleased to hear from me. They were surprised why I hadn't returned their call, and they had some really exciting news to tell me. And it turned out really well. Or I call my friend and they tell me that they've got some bad news. They just lost their job and they were calling me up to get some support or to get some advice as to what they should do. Or I call my friend and they are really angry with me. And they're really upset because I keep flaking out on them and I'm never available for them when they call. Whatever the outcome, I record it. And then I come up with my conclusion based on the outcome. Was my worry accurate? Was my worry prediction, did it actually come true? So if you think about this, if you do, say, 100 of these tolerating uncertainty experiments, and 95 of the 100 tolerating uncertainty experiments turn out negatively, so they turn out badly 95% of the time, what does that tell you about uncertainty? Well, what it tells you about uncertainty is that uncertainty is bad. That uncertainty is something to be afraid of. That most of the time, the vast majority of the time, when I'm uncertain about something, bad things will happen. And so what I should do is get better at avoiding uncertainty, get better at eliminating uncertainty in my life. If 95% of the time these tolerating uncertainty experiments turn out badly. But what if 95 of the 100 experiments that I do turn out either neutral or positively? What does that tell me about uncertainty? Well, what it tells me about uncertainty is 19 times out of 20, the uncertainty is just fine. Nothing bad happens. And so how do you think that's going to change how I orient myself towards uncertainty? How do you think that's going to change how I think about and feel about uncertainty? Well, I'm probably not going to be as afraid of uncertainty if through 100 experiences with it, it's turned out just fine. So the idea here isn't to try and convince yourself through logic or just rational thinking that uncertainty is okay. The idea here is for you to determine how you should feel about uncertainty through experiences with uncertainty. And by setting up these tolerating uncertainty experiments, you're giving yourself explicit examples of times where you did something you were uncertain about, you were worrying that this was going to happen, and what you were worrying about didn't actually happen. And the more you the more you sort of see, and the more you observe, and the more you demonstrate to yourself that the things that you worry about don't actually happen, the less weight, the less importance, the less value you're going to put on your worries. It's kind of like if every time the weatherman said that it was going to rain, it was sunny. And every time the weatherman said it was going to be sunny, it rained. Essentially, the weatherman's terrible at predicting the weather. So the next time the weatherman says it's going to rain, you're not going to take your umbrella because you know it's going to be sunny. If your predictions are not very good, you're not going to put much weight or much value in those predictions. And that's all worry is. It is a prediction. So that's one way of building tolerance for uncertainty, actually setting up these tolerating uncertainty experiments using the worksheet that you can download and fill out. You fill out the first two sections before you do the experiment. What is the experiment and what is your prediction? Then you do it, you record the data, and you record your conclusion. So it's sort of forward-thinking, pre-planned, tolerating uncertainty experiment. The second way of building tolerance for uncertainty is taking advantage of naturally occurring opportunities in your life to do things that you're uncertain about. The reality is we're faced with uncertainty every day, multiple times a day. And the vast majority of the time that uncertainty is turning out fine, we're just not even really aware, we're not even processing that the uncertainty is turning out fine. So what I often encourage clients to do to try and take advantage of naturally occurring opportunities to be more tolerant of uncertainty is to imagine the following question tattooed to the frontal lobe of their brain. So essentially, they're filtering their world through this question. And the question is, if I were more tolerant of uncertainty, what would I do in this situation? If I were more tolerant of uncertainty, would I order the same thing I always order in this restaurant, or would I order something different? If I were more tolerant of uncertainty, would I ask that person out for a date, or would I stay in my seat and not say anything? If I were more tolerant for uncertainty, would I answer the call even though I don't recognize the number, or would I let it go to voicemail? If I were more tolerant of uncertainty, would I speak up and express my opinion in this meeting at work, or would I stay quiet and wait to see what everybody else says? You have countless opportunities to tolerate uncertainty on a daily basis. You just have to look for those opportunities and take advantage of those opportunities when they present themselves. If I were more tolerant of uncertainty, what would I do in this situation? You don't have to do all of the tolerating uncertainty things, but just be aware of it. Just keep that question in mind. Help that orient you towards uncertainty, to look for uncertainty in your day-to-day life. And every once in a while, do the uncertain thing and see what happens. Because what you do by doing these tolerating uncertainty experiments, either the ones that are pre-planned or the ones that are just taking advantage of naturally occurring opportunities that come up, you can think of what you're doing kind of like putting money in a tolerating uncertainty bank account. What you're doing is you're having conscious, explicit experiences with uncertainty where you think about what it is that you are concerned is going to happen and then compare it to what actually happens. And by being aware of that and seeing that the uncertainty doesn't turn out badly all the time, or rarely turns out badly, what you're doing is it's almost like you're making deposits in this tolerating uncertainty bank account each time you do one of these experiments. And so through these experiences with uncertainty, the more and more of these experiences that you have with uncertainty, where uncertainty turns out well or fine or not negative, that tolerating uncertainty bank account gets bigger and bigger. And so when you're faced with a bigger uncertainty in life, what you can do is you can draw from this bank account. You can think about and reflect on all of the various experiences you've had with uncertainty in your life where it turned out fine. And so if all of those uncertainties turned out fine, there's a good chance this big uncertainty that I'm concerned about is going to turn out fine as well. So those are the two main ways of building tolerance for uncertainty. Planning ahead and actually setting up experiments, and taking advantage of the numerous opportunities you have in your day-to-day life to tolerate uncertainty. If I were more tolerant of uncertainty, what would I do in this situation? Of all the things I do with my clients, of all the skills and tools that I share with my clients, I find that for clients who really take on that question, if I were more tolerant of uncertainty, what would I do in this situation? And they apply it to their life, I see the biggest change and the most growth because people just approach life in a different way. All of those manifestations of intolerance of uncertainty that I talked about in a previous video, they get chipped away at because a person just becomes more and more oriented towards doing things that they're uncertain about. And they get more and more confident that it's going to be okay because they have all of this experience with uncertainty that demonstrates that it's going to be okay. So that's what I'd encourage you to do if you want to build your tolerance for uncertainty. Think about some tolerating uncertainty experiments and actually try them out. Download the worksheet, fill it out, and do the experiment. See how it goes. Keep that question at the forefront of your mind. Do things on a daily basis that come up from time to time. If I were more tolerant of uncertainty, what would I do in this situation? Even if you just think about it that way, you can start to think about and see all the various opportunities that you have in your day-to-day life to tolerate uncertainty. And those are all opportunities that you can take to build your tolerance for uncertainty. And by doing so, you start to cut off that fuel supply that drives this worry engine. So I would love to hear some of your ideas and thoughts and some of your tolerating uncertainty experiments that you might be planning on doing or you might have done and how they turn out. So please leave me some comments down below. If you have any thoughts or questions as well, let me know. I hope you're finding these videos helpful. If you're interested in seeing more of these videos and want to be alerted for when the next video comes out, please hit that subscribe button and you'll be alerted whenever I post a new video. So that's it for today. Thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one.